So, you've dropped off your film at the lab. Your excitement and anticipation grows with every minute waiting for those glorious tones. But then you get the email. Your film was blank and could not be scanned. And you're left with one question. What happened? Well, hopefully I can tell you. Alright, I want to get to your answers, so let's get through this intro real quick. My name is Aidan Samuels. I'm a portrait and event photographer based out of Toronto, Canada. I specialize in analog and film and recently released a book about film cameras. And I also work at a film lab where I see my fair share of blank rolls every day, so hopefully I can tell you what happened to yours. Oh, and one last thing before we start, it's worth noting that this video is in reference to lab development, so we're not going to go over some of the chemical and process issues that can occur with self-developing. Alright, so there are two main types of blank film rolls. Completely exposed and completely unexposed. By getting your blank roll negatives back from the lab, we can begin to unpack what may have happened. Now, completely exposed is the more straightforward of the two to investigate. It refers to when your film roll is completely opaque black. Now, this can have a few causes, but what it really means is that at some point, your film was completely exposed to light. Now, this could have happened if you accidentally opened your camera before rewinding, or maybe a friend did when you weren't looking, if the metal film canister has been somehow heavily damaged, or if the film was completely pulled from the canister before or after shooting. I don't know, maybe your little cousin got into your camera bag. In cases like these, it is still common for the very end of the film roll to show clear with the rebate, where the film may have still been protected by the canister. And on the same note, it's possible for your roll to be partially blank in this way. If you open up the camera mid-roll and close it again, you may see just the first half black like this and receive fewer scans than you were expecting. Now, it's rarer, but still possible to have a completely blank roll from other causes. If your film is severely expired enough, it can gain enough base fog and also lose enough sensitivity at the same time, so that your images just don't really come out. Now, we're talking 40 to 50 years expired here, so just a few years over, that won't be your problem. And alternatively, if the film was exposed to an excessive amount of heat, it can speed up the expiry process. However, we're still talking multiple summers in a hot car or a decade on a radiator. And in both of these cases, your film would appear more translucent brown or purple than black. So the way to avoid completely black rolls are pretty straightforward. If what I've described has happened to you before, maybe just be extra cautious around rewinding and opening the camera. If you're not sure if the film is rewound all the way or you think it may have torn off inside, you can bring the whole camera to the lab and the staff can help you make sure. And if your camera is a later 90s model that doesn't pull the film all the way back in for convenience, you can fold it under like this to protect it from accidentally being pulled out further. Okay, on to completely unexposed blank rolls. So I hate to say it, but by far the most common cause of completely blank unexposed rolls is not loading the camera properly. It happened to me when I was a beginner, and it still happens occasionally, especially with later model Leicas. So the rebate numbers along the edge of the film can help tell you if this happened to you, and if so, how. So starting a little further up in the roll, you can see the numbers count down 3, 2, 1, 0, 00, and then X. By seeing what the lowest of these numbers is that's shown, you can tell how far the film was pulled out of the canister when loading it into the camera. For a full-size camera, if the lowest number visible is somewhere around 0, so between the 1 and the 00 marks, this is a pretty solid indication that the film was pulled out of the canister while loading it into the camera, but it didn't properly catch and never move from that position while shooting. If you have a smaller camera like a point and shoot that doesn't require you to pull as much film out to load, this line may appear regularly around the 00 mark. Another sign of this is seeing a singular partial frame shape across the exposed line. This is what happens if your film is pulled ever so slightly by the camera before it loses its grip on the take-up spool, and what you're seeing there is actually every frame of the roll you took overlaid onto that one area. A quatuor vigenttuple exposure, if you will. Definitely didn't have to look that up. Now, you can also diagnose this type of loading issue by your own memory. When you were shooting the roll, did the frame counter go up more than 3 shots above the number on the canister? So 40 plus shots on a 36 roll, or 28 plus shots on a 24 roll? Was the rewind knob not spinning as you advanced? Did the advance lever have a slightly lighter pull than normal? And did the film seemingly rewind too quickly? Any and all of these can indicate this type of problem and serve as good signs to watch out for when you're first starting a roll to avoid this happening in the future. Now, back to the numbers on the film. If you can see the X visible, this is a pretty good indication that you may have got your film rolls mixed up and dropped off a roll that had never been exposed, because that X is the first thing to go when you pull your leader out of the camera, and if you can still see it on the exposed negative, it's a pretty good indication that the film was never shot. The remaining causes for a fully blank roll can be caused by your camera. In the rare case that your camera is fully working except the shutter is not actuating properly, it can lead to a situation where you're shooting, the film is winding, but nothing is ever exposed onto the film as it can't get through the shutter. It could also simply be an issue of camera settings. If your meter is off or you're still learning what all the dials do, it's possible that you exposed your whole roll indoors at f16 and 1/1000th and there just simply wasn't enough light to build up an image on the roll. This is usually what's to blame for a single blank frame in the middle of a roll. If either of these last two sound like they could be your issue, maybe bring your camera to the lab next time and see if they can help you check it out. Do you still have another unusual type of blank roll? Let me know in the comments and I'll see if I can answer it there, or if you're nearby, come by Aiden Camera in Toronto and maybe I can help you out in person. And with that, I get to say the ever classic, thank you for watching.